All right, everybody, how's it going? Got your host here, Eric Castillo, with the Warrior Mindset and Motivation Podcast Show. Today, we're talking with well, I guess you can call him a co-worker of mine when we were in Germany. His name's David Beale. We did some time in Germany together, and great non-commissioned officer. Really tactical, really technical. Listens, knows how to get it done. Kind of one of the guys you want to have when you're a squad leader or a section chief in your unit, so that way when you give tasks, you don't have to worry about it. It'll get done. So that's always one of the best things to have. He's a private contractor, and he's going to dig into all that stuff and dispel a couple of rumors through that, because I know that there is some, and dispelled a couple of mine, that's for sure. Because I had an idea of what it was until he schooled me on it. And I'll go ahead and learn about himself and explain, and we'll go from there. All right, go ahead, Dave.
All right, so I'm David Beale. I was a 8-year veteran of the U.S. Army, 13 Bravo cannoneer, and now I work in the private security sector as a private military contractor and close protection specialist. And got out and moved to Poland and went straight into that out of the Army. So a little quick transition for me into something completely different.
Right. So when you transitioned, did you go from Germany straight to Poland, or did you go back to the United States and then to Poland? Was it like a couple of moves?
I needed to take care. So when I took my terminal leave, the Army would pay for a free flight back to the States. So I went back to the States for about 2 or 3 weeks, I think, just to take care of some stuff back there before I went, and then flew back to Poland. I've been here ever since.
Oh, nice. So, and then when you I know you said you did some time. I was reading your bio. You did some time at Fort Drum. Did you deploy with them?
No, I never deployed in Fort Drum, unfortunately. I kept skipping around. We were on the global QRF, and then they deployed half our unit, and yeah, just never worked out. I don't know, most deployed unit in the United States Army, I never deployed with them.
That's a rare commodity right there. Holy smokes! You hear 10th Mountain, it's like a given.
Yeah, that's what we all thought, and then
Yeah.
sitting there like, the hell is going on?
Yeah, and then when we went to Germany, I know we had some pretty good things going on over there. Germany was actually a really good place. I learned a lot there when it came to getting the leadership. And I know there was one point leadership was kind of shaky there in Germany. I think you were there for that. They were kind of like 50-50.
I was there for a lot of the interesting times in Germany.
Yeah. But and then once you did that, we did our thing in Germany, and you went ahead and moved on. So how did so when you went to Poland, did you just kind of fall into the contractor stuff? Like, give a little rundown about how that came about. What was the thought? Did you know someone? Was it someone who knew someone? Like that whole game, like, oh, I know someone's brother whose cousin is this, or was it just apply, or how did you come about all that stuff?
Well, for me, that was always what I wanted to do when I got out of the Army. Joining the Army, for me, I joined late when I was about 25. And for me, I always wanted to do the contracting once I had finished. When I joined, I had no idea how long I was going to stay in the Army. But the contracting was the next step for me. So when I got out, I'd already done the research. I spent, I think, most of my time in the horrible transition classes, just researching all the contracting jobs, and found some good sites with information and good people, some contacts that I could talk to. And then as soon as I got out, I spent about 4 or 5 months just decompressing out of the Army, and then started applying and went to Afghanistan right after that.
Oh, wow. And we'll talk about that part in a minute. But the decompression part is one of the main things I like to hit on, because I know veterans more times than less have a rough struggle through transition. Unlike most people know, and how I've mentioned from time to time, I had a really rough time due to the nature on how I was retired from the military. And so when what did you do during your decompression that kind of kept you sane or if not so much, if you kind of fell down a little bit, went down a little rabbit hole, but then came out. How did that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a little of both. Like coming out of living in the barracks, or, I got divorced while I was in Germany, and then coming out of that and living in the barracks, and then into a household with a 6 and a 9-year-old, and adjusting to that was definitely it was a shock, like, especially not knowing that I was going to be contracting and not having a job to go to every day.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol is easy to slip into when you're like that, because it's like, oh, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to drive anywhere,
Right.
just work around the house. And then you're working around the house and you start drinking at noon, and suddenly you're shit-faced by 8 p.m. can't do anything. So it definitely took some adjustment. I'm still working on finding the balance of how long do I need to be away? How long should I be home if I'm not, doing a job here? So it was an interesting transition. I've found that a lot of it, actually going to Afghanistan, was probably the best, because that sort of refocused me. But that first 6 months was sort of, it's weird, like money and not having work. And thankfully my fiance works, so she could help support us.
Well, that's good. That's awesome, man. And like, so what were the things? I know you mentioned the thing about finding the balance, and I know that it's one of the hardest things to do, because it's a constant scale that tips left and tips right and tips left and tips right when it comes to finding the balance. So when you were finding yourself tipping a little too far to one side, what were some of the things you did to kind of even the scale back out?
Like finding things to do, because I mean, my girl, she still gives me crap about it. Is I'm that army mindset of, if you don't have a task, you just sit there and wait.
Yes.
And that was like the biggest thing. I'll complete something and then I sit on the couch and I'll be like, go on Facebook. I don't have anything to do anymore. Then she comes home and like, why the hell didn't you do anything else? I'm like, because no one told me to do anything else.
Yeah, I definitely know that feeling. I had that feeling before. Now it's a little different now, because my brain is rewired. So now I know, for me, what I try to do is if I try to not necessarily look for something to do, because in the army, at the same time, like, well, if you don't, that old saying, if you ain't got something to do, I'll give you something to do. But it's different, because now you don't have anyone telling you what to do, so you kind of got to do it on your own. And
Yeah.
I learned that one a little later on, after my marriage was done, that, and especially with my girlfriend now, that I'll be here and like she's out doing something, or if she's running errands or whatever, I'll kind of like, I'll sit for a little while and not do nothing, but then at the same time I'll look around like, okay, what can I do? What needs to be done? And I kind of put that mindset of the military of okay, well, you need to do something. You can sit there, but then nothing will be done. And then on the turn, when it comes to that, it becomes an appreciative factor too, when you actually do something for your significant other, and then they come back and then they're like, oh, well, you didn't do that, and they notice it. So kind of doing those little things helps. And I know you say you do work around the house, so kind of like the busy work basically is what it is. It's like just kind of keeping the mind engaged in something, so that way you don't completely lose it, right?
Yeah. And obviously summer's easier, because then I can go outside, I can work on the yard, build
Right.
something, chicken coop, whatever we need. But like winter, obviously, if I'm here during winter, it's a lot tougher, because there's not so much you can do outside. So I need to find stuff. I'm so tired of cleaning the house. I'm like,
Well, I'll tell you, it's a really clean house, that's for sure.
oh yeah, I'm the homemaker. I cook the food for the girls, take care of them, especially during COVID, because
Yeah.
they're not going to school right now. So they're home with me all day. So I take care of them. I do all the wife stuff, basically. And then I go to some horrible country and switch back over to soldier.
Right. Now, and that leads it on to, you said you went to Afghanistan. That kind of put a whole bunch of things back into perspective. And I know a lot of soldiers can attest to that, because I know my first time I went to Afghanistan way back in 2003. Um, you become appreciative of things you don't really have, and it puts a whole bunch of crap into perspective on where you're at, how you're living, and where you were at before. So for you, what stuff went into perspective for you?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that came into perspective, and then we as contractors, we're still under General Order number 1. So that was for me, like, I think the longest time I've been sober in a very long time. So that helped a lot. And I don't know, it's that weird mindset. We're working at an ECP and you're looking under the vehicle with the mirror, and you're like, if I find an IED and they clack off, I'm done. There's no coming back from that. And you have to deal with that every day. Like, shit can happen, but it put it into perspective, like, to, I don't know, care more about it, about being home and enjoying that time with the family, with the little things, going for a walk in the woods, or taking the kids for ice cream, the enjoying the simple things. But then as a contractor, you also have the trap. You can't enjoy it too much because you have to go back. You can't just be like, oh, I don't want to work anymore. So you have to learn to balance when you leave and when you stay home.
Right. And for like contracting, like, now you can talk everyone through that process a little bit. And I know a little bit of it, but I'm not even going to try to act like I know, because I don't. Because when I joined that group that you did, it's called the Oak Tree on Facebook. And I know that's a really good check-in place for people who want to know about contracting stuff. And I know you put stuff out there. I thought it was like how we were talking before we went live here. I thought it was just like, hey, Blackwater, oh, one contract, 12 months, 300,000, done. I will do it, and then that's it. Like, and that was kind of the way it was pitched around too, when I seen a couple of contractors when I was deployed on my last tour. We had 2 of them attached to us to teach us private security stuff, because that was our mission at the time. And I asked one of the guys how much he makes, and he pulled me to the side, and he couldn't exactly tell me, but he said, I'm about to pay off my second house. And I was like, the hell? I was like, second house? I was like, and I'm over here getting pennies? What the hell's going on here? So if you can kind of run the people down about how it goes to apply for a contract, like what is the process? What are the steps? I know I saw that you got your certification to handle a firearm in Europe, which is huge, because Europe is not really a fan of firearms in general. So if you can talk to people,
that's very difficult over here, the process
so
to do that.
Yeah, if you could talk to people through a little bit of that, and like how the contract, that getting and securing a contract actually works, that would really, I know, help some people out who are thinking about doing that, who are active now, and or kind of just sitting around contemplating being a contractor.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing about contracting is do it right away. Like, it's not like, I'm moving in more into close protection, which is a career, more civilian side, but contracting, I wouldn't say is a career. It's a way to get that money, that time, build a future for whatever other endeavors that you want to do. Because if you did it for, as a career, you'd probably burn yourself out. It's so much time away, and it's boring. And I mean, you've been to Afghanistan. Most of the time, it's not, 13 hours. It's sit and wait for something to happen. But the first thing is, there's a bunch of good websites. Shooterjobs.com is probably the biggest one for stateside contractors. It's $10 a month, and they post contracts from all the major companies: Constellus, Triple Canopy, all the major ones. So if you want to look into it, and they post stateside ones, it's not all Alconis work. If you're looking for any sort of, people think, oh, all contracting's downrange. No, it's not. There's, protecting nuclear facilities, all sorts of contracting work in the States as well. Alconis is just, generally it pays more, but with the wars winding down, it's not what it was in 2001, 2003. You're
Right.
not going to get, unless you're, super Delta special ops sniper who can do DDM for Constellus in whatever horrible place they want to send you to, you're not looking at, 300K a year. You look
Right.
at starting out, if you're doing just physical security, you won't be getting onto a PSD team straight away. So unless you're SF, don't think that. You're going to be running ECPs, towers, that sort of thing for various companies. And you're looking at $60,000 to $70,000 a year. But it's tax free as long as you're outside of the States, which is a bonus, and you're not really spending stuff. So, especially for single guys, it's a really good option to, get out and go and do that immediately. And I say immediately because if your clearance expires, it becomes much more difficult to find a job because companies don't want to spend the money to sponsor you for renewing your clearance if they can just get someone who already has one. So if you want to do contracting, make sure you know when your clearance expires and find a job before that happens.
Right, because then they can renew it for you while you're on a job, right?
Yes, which is much cheaper, and they have the security and knowing that if they're going to pay for it, you're still going to be there.
Right, yeah. And yeah, that makes sense. They wouldn't do it if they didn't want to keep you around. So that makes a lot of sense. And how many times have you gone around? Like, how many places have you been since you've been doing the contracting work?
I went to Afghanistan twice, and then coronavirus hit. So I was looking around Europe, and the problem with coronavirus is that if you do a U.S. government contract, you go to El Paso and do CRC, the Combat Readiness Group, or I can't remember whatever Army acronym. It's their basic medical. You do all that, and then they get you ready to deploy and fly you to wherever you're going, and your company will pick you up when you get there at Bagram or Kuwait.
Okay.
But with Corona lockdown, I sort of got stuck here. U.S. companies weren't looking for anybody who was in Europe, so I decided to move more into close protection, which some people would say bodyguard, but that's close protection operative is a little more complicated than a bodyguard, as I found out when I went through the school. It's like learning a completely new skill set to work in that industry.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing I would say is it's always going to, no matter whether you want to do PMC work or close protection, it's a bottom up. You have to, don't go in thinking you're going to be, even as coming out as an E6, E7, think you're going to be hot shit and in charge of people. You're going to be at the bottom rung again, E1 private, and you got to work through everything and move your way up through the industry again.
Right, and I think that's a huge misconception too, because I even thought that, thinking I knew that the position in the military it holds a weight, but when you get with a company or a job, they're like, okay, cool, you're at the bottom, because you don't have the longevity, and you got to where you're at in the Army because of longevity and time and experience. And it seems like, almost like with the contracting business, it's kind of the same thing. Like they'll acknowledge what you've done, but you need to learn the ropes before they place more trust on you. It's like going to the board. You got to learn, you got to study, you got to prepare, so that way then you can be more competent in that specific area when it comes to doing private contracting work.
Yeah, the way I'd say is your military experience is the key that unlocks the door. But then once you walk through, you have to build yourself back up in that industry.
Right. Now, when you, and this may sound like a little ridiculous, I don't know, I'm not necessarily a ridiculous question, but kind of like what an off question. Are there any like incentives like while you're contracting? And I just thought of this right now. It wasn't even something I wrote down here on my notepad. But like, how like in the Army you got like this board or that board or this induction. Does the contracting world kind of have any of that? Like maybe an incentive or a perk or a bonus or certain benefits or anything?
Oh yeah, it all depends on the company you work for. And when you apply for a contract, they'll send you a letter of intent, which will basically lay out pay structure, everything about your contract and what they're offering you. And then when you sign that and send it back, that's when the hiring process starts, and you do medical, blood tests, all that sort of stuff, pre-deployment work.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on the contract. Some companies will offer, like, because it's not like the Army. I could quit at any time. If I'm over in Afghanistan and I don't like my contract, I just say I'm going home and I fly out.
Nice.
So a lot of companies will offer like an end of tour bonus. If you sign a year contract and you complete the full year, they'll give you a bonus at the end for completion. Or a lot of them promote within the company. So you can go from just starting as an armed guard to shift lead to site lead. Like, you can move up in the companies.
Right.
It's more of a corporate structure, but those are for people who are willing to take the time and be away for that long.
Right. And then and also if you're choosing to stay with a dedicated company versus jumping from company to company to company, right?
Yeah. And yeah, that's definitely a big thing. So picking the company that you work for is important, and you can get, I think it was Glassdoor has a lot of good reviews. If you just put in the company name, like type in, Triple Canopy or Dynacorp or whatever company you're looking to work for, and you get reviews of people who've worked for them. Because Triple Canopy's got into some trouble because they use some suspect business practices with their contractors. That's the one thing you have to be careful. Companies will abuse you. It's not like the Army. There's oversight, but it's not as strict as the Army. So you have to look at what you're signing and know what your rights are when you go there. Because I've heard of people getting their clearances held by other companies and not releasing them, and people not getting paid for TDY stuff. So it can get bad if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, wow. And that, I guess it goes to show, and even not just with contract, just with anything, just make sure you read before you sign. I mean, I know that's a kind of a given rule, but I know a lot of people most of the time just go, oh, okay, yeah, I know what this is, and boop, and then they sign it and they don't even know what they're signing.
Yeah, they get out there like, oh, I want to go into contracting. I want to do that. And they go the first one and they're like, should have read what you signed.
Yeah, and now they're stuck with it. And and there's no labor laws from what I understand in contracting either. They kind of just work you.
No, they can fire you like, oh, they got a complaint, or they could fabricate a complaint, and they're like, no, you're going home.
Oh.
And there's no unemployment, there's no nothing. You're just gone.
And then I see if that happens too, and I know that follows you when you go to apply for a next job. Like, hey, why did you get fired from this last contract? Because I know that'll kind of carry over, kind of like the Army does when you get UCMJ.
Oh yeah, they can blacklist you if they want.
Oh,
Like, if
wow.
people, it's rare now, but yeah, like if you don't do the proper steps when working for a company, they can blacklist you on the DoD, so you won't get a contract ever again if you fuck up the wrong way.
Oh, wow. Dang, that's a little more harsh than the military. Yeah, military, you get Article 15. Yeah, you do your time, or maybe they put you out. But that's dang. That means like no more contracting job. That's insane. That's something I didn't even know. So like this is all like super cool, like insightful stuff, because I know the common, like I was saying, perception is, oh, 6-figure income, deploy Afghanistan, Iraq, or some South American country, and come back and enjoy that for a while and find another one. So it's nice to hear about the process on how this works, because I know this will clear up a lot of stuff for people. I know for me, well, I can't do it anymore. Too old and diabetic, so that stuff won't work for me no more. But for the young guys out there, listen to this stuff here, because this is good stuff, especially if you're thinking about going to the contracting work. And I know one thing for me was that I thought that I would just walk right in, like, oh, hey, you know what? I've done this, I've done that. I was deployed with Special Forces in 2003, and I did private security work in 2014. I can walk right into anything. That's what I thought. And hey, here David's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, especially these days. And the other thing I want to say about contracting is, don't think the shooters, that's what they call any armed personnel who are contracting, make up the minority of contractors. Maybe like, just like in the Army, 1-2% are actually armed. But don't think because you don't have a job that's tactical, that you can't go contracting. Most of the six-figure salaries are non-combat jobs. Intel, mad money in Intel right now over in Afghanistan, Iraq. Flight mechanics, generator mechanics, IT.
Right.
You're an IT professional and you want to you have a clearance and go to Afghanistan, 6 figures guaranteed.
So you see that, people? You don't even know how to shoot a gun. You can be a contractor. You have never held a weapon in your life, and you still can go be a contractor and go make good money. But again, you fall to the rules of the contract and what you sign. So got to be very careful with what you read. And I know that when I was there, I remember, I think it was in 2011, there was a contracting company. I don't think it was DynCorp. I think it was someone else. But this guy, he was open with his stuff. He was a guy who all he did in Afghanistan was lay internet wire and set up satellites. And he made $265,000 for that contract for the year. And I know this because he told me, and he laid an internet wire straight to my room and gave me my own phone with a phone number. So I know this. I know this all because we let him shoot the howitzers. We let him shoot the guns on our firing point. So he gave a whole bunch of people internet lines and phones. So that I know that for sure. I don't know if that's still the same, but that was 2000.
No. If you go over wanting to go into the tactical side and move up, yes, there will be 6-figure jobs if you move up through the industry, but you'll be sitting there making $60K a year guarding some guy with a beer belly who comes in, does one thing on a computer, walks out, and he's making $200,000 a year. So is it like, because your clearance is good for 2 years, if it isn't reaching the 10-year expiration mark, if you get out and get IT certification, anything like that, and then you want to go back down there, it's a really good option, especially if your clearance is still valid.
Right. And that's good that you touched on the tactical versus non-tactical, because I know most people, when they hear private military contractor, they think of vest, Kevlar, guns, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all that stuff. So it's good that you actually bring up the fact that that's not necessarily the case. I know, again, for me initially, that's what I thought. I thought, oh, PMC, give me a gun, but
yeah,
that's not the case, which is really great. And I appreciate you talking about all this stuff. And if there's one thing you want to let the people here know, or anyone who's active duty or on their way out or contemplating, what's something you want to let them know, or something that they really need to hear?
Something they really need to hear?
Yeah.
I'd say find a goal. Like, that's the biggest thing when I was getting out and I was going through the transition process. A lot of people, they get to that point and were they in for 4 years or they were in for 20 years, they don't know what they want to do when they get out of the service. And for me, I knew I wanted to be a contractor, so that was always my goal, and it allowed me to focus. I still may have fallen into pitfalls and issues with the transitioning when I got out, but I still at least knew this is what I want to do. So find that goal. And even if that goal is in the future and you want to contract for a couple of years to make money and save and then go for that goal, have that goal, what your dream is when you get out.
That's perfect. And that's kind of like what I touch on every time is find, for the military people who are in, find an objective, because that's what they give us. They give us objectives and tasks. It doesn't change when you get out. It just the verbiage changes. So instead of finding an objective or a task, find a goal. What's the end state? Where are you trying to get to? And what do you need to do to get there? And when it boils down to it, Dave here can give you all the tools and the resources. But again, you have to be the one that submits it, and you have to be the one to actually follow through with it, because he can only do so much. He can give you the websites, he can give you the tools to train, he can give you everything, but you have to be the one to follow through, because at the end of the day, you are the one that holds yourself back from achieving that goal that you want to get. So I appreciate that final note there, Dave, about finding a goal, because I think that's huge, especially right now, especially with COVID. I think finding a goal, or at least something to complete, so that way we have that sense of completion and satisfaction that we've actually completed something, is important. So I appreciate you for coming on over here, especially from way down over there on the other side of the planet. I know it's nighttime over there now. I remember 8-9 hour difference, so that's cool.
Yeah, nine hours right now. It's not
Yeah,
too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I remember that. Sun's up over here, sun's down over there. So I appreciate you for coming on. If anyone wants to reach out to David, his Facebook is over there and in the description of the post. I also wrote on my page, Warrior Mindset page, the shooterjobs.com. So if you're listening, shooterjobs.com. Dave says is a really good one to check out.
Yeah, shooter jobs, clearance jobs is another great one. They have a lot of both stateside and OCONUS work, even some stuff in Poland if you guys want to come visit. If you're IT professionals right now, that's about all they have. Hell, the last thing I'd say, if you're going into contracting, well, any job really, is networking. Most of the good stuff you don't get applying online. It's who you know. They're the ones who are going to find you jobs, and they're the ones who are going to recommend it.
Right. That's totally huge, is networking. And that's one of the things that I know when I got out, the Army started kind of pushing towards, was networking and building a network, because it's the same thing. It's who you know, because that person may know a person of a person of a person to get you a pretty cool job, or at least get you a foot in the door to get you to interview. You know? So
like in CP work, I might have a guy who's got a CP contract and he needs a team put together, and he's like, "Oh, I remember David. He was really good. I'd love to work with him." He sends me a call. All right, I can come do that.
Yeah. So, and it's good to build a network and not just connect with someone and then kind of ditch them out, especially if it's an area you're trying to go through. You want to keep those connections kind of constant and current and flowing, like not like a everyday, hey, how's it going, but just like a check-in, just to kind of, oh, hey, how, like a message of gratitude. Hey, glad we're a connection, glad we're this, to kind of keep that flow. So that way, when something does pop up, especially in the contracting world, you're the first name that pops up.
Yeah. And having, like, for us, with my guys I went through the school with, we have a WhatsApp group. Like, make WhatsApp groups wherever you go and keep in contact with those guys, because they're the ones, even in the civilian world, it works the same. Any business is networking. If someone recommends you, you're more than likely to get the job over someone who just applies out of the blue.
Right. Now, totally, because that recommendation is huge, you know, especially like if it's in the field you're, like you said, like you're trying to go to, and that person could be like the person's assistant, or it could be like the maybe they're both like managers or bosses together, just in different departments, and that other guy is vouching for you. He's like, hey, I know this guy, he's legit. And the person who's looking at you may just not even interview you and take you for the contract because dude over here said you're good, or the girl over here said that you're good to go. So I mean, networking is really, really important. It's really huge, especially when you get out. So I think that's the best way to close it right there, is find a goal and network. I think that's the best way we close it out right there.
Yeah, find a goal and network and work towards it.
That's it. And that's what we do as veterans. You know, we gotta find a goal, network, and then make an impact, be successful. So thanks, Dave, for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time over there. So now you can go watch your I don't know what show you said you were gonna watch. Some reality
Paradise
show.
Hotel.
Oh, Paradise Hotel. Well, I don't even know what that
stupid,
means.
sexy people doing stupid shit.
I don't even know what that means. But you can go watch your Paradise Hotel. Next week, yes, I'm doing this on Thanksgiving, people, next week, and I got a special treat for you. Just a little, won't tell you his name, but he is a very successful entrepreneur, and he is a former NFL defensive back. So special treat for that one. He's a really great guy, super involved in the veteran community, because for those who know, my show is veterans only, unless, that's like the small fine print at the bottom, unless they provide a lot of support for veterans and they're not military affiliated, then you get to come on the show. You know, that's just the way it is. That's how I run this, you know, because veterans got to support veterans. So tune in next week for that one. Dave, if you get a chance, you get to check him out. You can see what's going on. And I appreciate you for coming on. And everybody, thank you for watching, and see you guys next week.